Hey, how's it going, Kevin?
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's good to talk. Let's see. You wanted to talk about Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, right?
Occurred.
Why do you think Hillary Clinton is the best matchup for Donald Trump in 2024? I'm very curious. I just don't understand it. It's to me, it's a baffling position. But please feel free to explain it to me.
Sure. So Hillary Clinton, as I mentioned in the chat earlier, technically, yeah, she lost the Electoral College in 2016 by about 70,000 votes across 3 states, which isn't that much. And that Donald Trump at the time, albeit unpopular, he still had a significant amount of popularity with just like normie type people. Whereas now, today, the only people that are really in his court are definitively the crazies. He could still win, but he's going to have a harder time this time around. Additionally, basically everything that Hillary Clinton had warned about, predicted about Donald Trump, has come to fruition. She warned that he was a threat to democracy, that he was acting as essentially a Russian asset. All of these things that have come to light have been basically confirmed. He tried to do an insurrection on January 6th. This is the sort of thing that she was warning about years prior. Now, it's not to say that other Democratic candidates couldn't necessarily win, but I think given the combination of Donald Trump's lower approval rating, Hillary Clinton specifically being on the record all that time ago as the person that was like, hey, look, I'm going to try to save you guys from this stuff. And in addition to that, Joe Biden's weakening popularity ever since Joe Biden concluded the surrender to the Taliban, basically, his popularity hasn't recovered. He's at a net 50% disapproval right now. And sure, the coverage of Afghanistan is weaning down, but his popularity hasn't recovered from that. And so, if Joe Biden can't turn things around, and Donald Trump, I think, is going to make the run in 2024, and I think that he probably would be the nomination, then you need somebody who's going to be a strong candidate that can beat him, that I think Hillary Clinton would be able to do. It's not to say necessarily that somebody else couldn't do it, but I think you don't necessarily want to take risks, and I think that she would destroy him this time around.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that Hillary Clinton has run for president twice, right? And both times she's lost. Once she lost in the Democratic primary, and the second time she lost in the presidential elections. And she is the one and only Democrat to ever go head to head with Donald Trump and lose. The other one was Joe Biden, who went head to head with him, and Joe Biden won. And when we're talking about the margin of loss in a lot of these states we're talking about, earlier today I was talking about why I feel like we have a disaster looming when it comes to our losses in mid-sized manufacturing states and manufacturing counties and small manufacturing counties, right? One great example to show just like how disastrously she lost would be Ohio. Now, I'm going to show this on stream if you want to see it as well. So if we look at Ohio, which this is supposed to be a swing state, but recently it's been going more and more to Republicans. But in 2008, with 70% turnout, Joe Biden beat Mitt Romney with 2,827,000 votes to Mitt Romney's 2,660,000 votes. Now, 600,000 votes, 200 to 600,000 votes, right? So that means that Barack Obama won by what? It was about 2 million, and that was 200,000 in 2014. Now that's worse than how he did in 2008, where he won by 300,000. So it's like, okay, that's a decrease of 100,000 votes. That's not great, right? That he's going in that direction, but we won the state again. Then you go to Hillary versus Trump in 2016. She lost the state by almost 500,000 votes. In the span of 4 years, she turned a 200,000 net positive in the state of Ohio in the 2012 presidential election to a 500 vote net negative, 500,000. That is a massive flip And Joe Biden is still trying to recover from that. Joe Biden did perform better than Hillary in Ohio, but he wasn't able to win Ohio either. And again, it wasn't close against Donald Trump. And so when we're talking about these paths to victory, like Ohio, like Pennsylvania, was also went to Trump in 2016, which we're talking about Michigan, Wisconsin, all these states that are manufacturing states that the Democrats are having trouble winning. How are we going to trust Hillary to win these places that are going to be necessary for a Democratic victory when she lost them so massively in 2016?
Well, okay, so Ohio, that's one where, yeah, that one obviously skewed very favorably to Donald Trump. But you can look at Michigan and Wisconsin, where the total that she lost by wasn't actually that much. It was close. And that was against Donald Trump at the height of his popularity, basically. And so he's not going to be having the same numbers this time around. He's a lot more fortified in a smaller base. Now, he has a base in the Republican Party that I think would propel him to the nomination, but he's not going to have the same broader appeal this time around. Whereas Hillary Clinton, in contrast, as I said, has been basically proven right again about everything that she had alleged that Donald Trump was planning to do, of his character, etc. And I think additionally that both the US government and people in general are a bit more savvy and a bit more aware of foreign interference attempts to hype up chaos candidates such as Donald Trump. And I think that their campaign to discredit her would be less effective this time around. And so Putin in the past has said that, yeah, he did admit to supporting Donald Trump. He didn't change votes, but they did hack into the voter rolls. They did run, propaganda, memes, that type of stuff. People are a bit more aware of that now, and people are, in general, not going to be taken for a fool as much these days. People are a bit more guarded in that sense. And so I think that for Hillary Clinton, would she be able to win Ohio? Probably not. But I think any Democratic candidate would probably struggle in Ohio, though. Right?
I think she would lose by a worse margin. I just looked this up. I didn't actually know this beforehand. Her popularity is lower than it was when she lost in 2016. She lost in 2016 with like 44 to maybe like low, maybe at 40, like favorability. She's at like 36 right now.
Wait, that's from 2018 though. That's from 2018.
So do you think it's rebounded up back? Could we go back? I mean, maybe it has, but do we have any idea on like been given any reason for it to like rebound?
Well, again, I think primarily, and I don't have any polls on this one. I haven't seen. I tried looking up polling over the last few weeks as I've been talking about this with friends of mine. I haven't seen any recent polling conducted on Hillary Clinton's chances because people haven't seen her as like a serious candidate yet. But I think as Donald Trump, as that gets to be taken more seriously for 2024, people might look at Hillary Clinton. They might look at other candidates too, but and then do polling on that. In general, Donald Trump's approval rating has gone down. Hillary Clinton's approval, yeah, you can say it's somewhat lower, than it was in 2016. But Donald Trump in particular has done so terribly, especially in the last 2 years. The last 2 years of his administration, obviously, you saw him basically becoming the whole, disgruntled, chaotic, eventually insurrectionary president. And I think that Hillary Clinton can make a case better than basically almost anybody else that basically she was the one who warned that all this crap was going to happen. And I think that she can rebound in terms of her popularity. I'm not going to say right now that she's more popular than Joe Biden at the moment, but I think that she has more potential than Joe Biden. I'm skeptical that Joe Biden's going to recover in his trend towards negative approval, because he's at 50%
right now. That he's tied with the recent poll that I saw with the head-to-head matchup between Trump and Biden. They were tied, right? Which is concerning. But I've given no reason to believe that Hillary Clinton would perform better. Joe Biden won, Hillary lost, and the thing is, like, maybe you can make the argument that like Hillary Clinton would be able to make these arguments of like, well, I was right about this or I was right about that. What Do you think that like her bringing up Russia and saying, "Well, I was right about Russia," for example, which one of your things is something that's going to improve her approval rating or beat down Trump? I mean, we've been hitting that talking point, which is true about the Internet Research Agency. I agree with you. What's going to change with her making that point when Democrats have been making that point for the last 4 years to not much effect outside of our strong base of being motivating them to get out and vote and work?
Right. Well, I think additionally what she could do if she was going to make the run is she could position herself as in general a stronger candidate than Joe Biden. I think that one thing that she could do especially is to point out how with regards to the Afghanistan pullout, how that was handled, that she would have done things differently. She could make that argument. I do think that this is going to be sticking around in the background. I don't think it's going to be like the main issue necessarily or anything against Joe Biden, but I think that she can recover and she can basically say, that this was a threat, that this was done to undermine American democracy. And now you've got obviously January 6th. You've got documentaries and stuff have come out, showing the effect of social media, showing the relationship that, yeah, as you point out, the IRA had with regards to social media manipulation, all that sort of thing. You can say, well, it's not necessarily that effective or anything, but the talking point there hasn't really been played that much recently. It was more of a big thing back in 2016. And I think a lot of people then were kind of contrarian. A lot of people were like, oh, yeah, establishment bad, this sort of stuff. And then they see the consequences of a chaos candidate like Donald Trump. I think that people in general are going to want somebody that knows what they're doing, has a lot of experience. And yeah, you pointed out that she ran twice and didn't win, but she came pretty close in 2008. And in 2016, she did win the popular vote. So she's proven to have won the popular vote. Now,
Yeah,
Joe
but
Biden did too.
yeah, okay, but when the popular vote decides elections, then 100% Hillary can win. But the popular vote doesn't decide elections, so I don't really understand how that would be at all matter.
Right, right. I hear that. I hear that. It's just the point that I was getting at is that Ohio is the state that you bring up to make a strong case against her. But if you
I
look
bring
at
up Pennsylvania for Pennsylvania would be another case, and the thing is, I like Pennsylvania in certain states it was closer. I'll admit it was closer in other states, but I'm being given no reason why Democrat presence on the ground, 2016 to 2024, in that 8-year period, is going to change substantially to deliver her the victory there. I don't think the suburban voters that she would be winning, even though Joe Biden is probably seen as when Joe Biden is most certainly seen as more pro-union as Hillary because he has more of a record on it, in my opinion. How she's going to pick up the votes outside of the suburban community that she needs to win in 2024.
right, okay. So I guess another sort of aspect to this that comes up is it kind of depends on if Joe Biden runs, what Joe Biden's long-term approval is going to be like, and if there are any other challengers that might try to run instead of Joe Biden.
Well, of
So
course,
do you think
Kamala
that Joe
Harris.
Biden?
I think literally, I don't say this lightly. I think basically every other option is better than Hillary. I think Joe Biden's better. I think Kamala Harris is better. I think basically almost every Democrat that ran in 2020 would have been a better option. I don't think Hillary Clinton, the one person who has shown us how to lose to Donald Trump, who didn't even campaign in Wisconsin, a state she lost and thought she had in the bag, should be ever given the responsibility again of facing this man down in 2024 when she's going to be 76 years old, which was a problem I had with Joe Biden when he ran, which would be a same problem she would be facing at the same time.
Right, but see, the thing is, that's an argument against her that she didn't campaign in Wisconsin, but it's also, in a way, almost an argument in her favor there because imagine she did campaign, I think she would have won there, and
I
she's
mean,
definitely going to
it's
campaign there this
possible.
time.
I mean, it's yeah, maybe this time she would be making good on those mistakes, maybe. But the problem is, I think that would show to me that she has a problem with being overconfident. She has a problem, a little bit of an ego trip, being full of herself and assuming that she can just take that state for granted. And while it is true she might be able to correct that mistake, but that also shows that somebody was irresponsible in the pursuance of the office, and I would be untrusting of giving her that opportunity again. Because Joe Biden campaigned in Wisconsin, Joe Biden corrected those mistakes, and Joe Biden won. So why would I then, in 2024, hand the reins back over to the person who messed up? I don't understand.
Right, right. I guess the key point here is most of my argument here is that if Joe Biden decides not to run, I think that if she were to run against him, if he decides to run, he would probably win that. I don't necessarily think that would be good. I'm just not 100% sure that Joe Biden's going to run in 2024.
Okay.
So
Well,
that's
let me ask you a question. So
yeah.
now, so a big thing that would be important to winning these states that she lost would be making an argument, in my opinion, depending on who the candidate is 2024. Because if it's Trump, then we might be able to keep the suburbanites. But it's debated by a lot of Democratic strategists if we'd be able to keep the suburbanites who have flipped blue, whether it was like Mike Pence or Ron DeSantis or a different Republican on the ticket. And we don't know what Donald Trump's health is going to be 3 years down the line. We don't know what Hillary's health is going to be. We don't know what Joe's health is going to be. Basically, all these people are like 70s, 80s. This is the range we're talking about right now. So what is the argument from Hillary Clinton to the working class industrial heartland voter who has had their work hollowed out? Because that is where the big shift that gave Trump the foundation for his victory was. I'm a political consultant for 21st Century Democrats. The data I'm looking at on stream is actually data from the political PAC I work for. They collected this. They made this, and that's why we were talking about the chances for 2024 and 2022 today. So what is her argument to those people? You made like a foreign policy argument, but I really doubt that a foreign policy argument is going to work in that extent 3 years down the line, but we could talk about that next. But what is her argument to those voters?
Yeah, so her argument to those voters basically would be, along the same lines as an argument levied at the general population, which is that Donald Trump tried to destroy your democracy. Donald Trump tried to basically sell your country out for cash, basically for cash and ego, all that kind of stuff. Just a quick side note, you did bring up that she's obviously got a big ego. I think anybody that runs for president basically has to have a big ego and,
I agree with that.
basically run into. I don't see how you could make it there if you weren't full of yourself. I think Joe Biden
Every
has a
politician
huge ego.
has a big ego, in my opinion. Every single one.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I think that you can make mistakes based on it. And yeah, everybody makes mistakes running. I mean, but the thing is, to go back to answer your question, the argument that she's going to be able to make there is that Donald Trump didn't actually bring your jobs back, that it's time to transition in an inevitable direction, which is away from, say, heavy or medium manufacturing in general. That a lot of these things, even if you are able to, in some cases, bring factories back, they're going to be automated. So it's not a long-term solution. And in general, that segment of the population is going to decrease in their electoral capacity down the road. They're just not going to have as many voters. And so now in 3 years, it's still going to be an issue. But I think that in general, that sort of Rust Belt, the whole thing about the Rust Belt and whatnot, Donald Trump didn't actually bring them their jobs back. He did a trade war with China, or at least he tried to, and it didn't really deliver for them. So as far as a message that she could put forth, the message that she can put forth is that she was right about Trump, that it's time to transition towards a more a futuristic sort of economy, and that with her as president, she's not going to leave those people behind, whereas Donald Trump's just going to sell them a pipe dream and not deliver for them. I think that would be your argument.
The problem is, fundamentally, is that I don't think she knows how to make that argument well, because she kind of tried to, and it didn't go well. A great example would be her talking about coal in West Virginia and how they needed to phase out coal, and then how Trump took advantage of that and was like, I'm going to support coal. And even though it is true, many of the things she said about coal, the way she delivered that message rubbed those workers so negatively, and it turned them against her. People, and she's already a politician they have a reason to be suspicious of, because many of them don't like NAFTA. And even if I have personal disagreements about the specifics of NAFTA when it comes to many of those workers and like the benefits that it gave the United States, that is something that's going to continue to be an issue in 2024, is these loss of manufacturing jobs that many of them are going to tie to globalization, which they see her a champion of. Now, I agree globalization is a good thing, but she is tied to that and I would be willing to be able to go for a candidate who maybe was like a symbol of globalization if they were able to sell it, but she never sold it. She didn't know how to sell in 2016. She didn't know how to sell her record in 2008 to even win the Democratic primary. And I have no reason to believe that when she's 76 years old in 2024, she's going to be able to sell her record to these voters we need to win, which we continue to lose. I mean, she lost these areas. The reason she lost was because of small manufacturing and mid-sized manufacturing communities which despise her. Her approval rating has continued to plummet, and I'm sorry, I just have like such a large disconnect with you. I really don't see how she has a path forward to victory, or why we should really risk it.
Right. So I guess I got a question for you then, Dylan, which is that let's say that Joe Biden, for whatever reason, decides not to run in 2024 and Donald Trump is going to be on the ticket. And I think Donald Trump would blow DeSantis out of the water. I think a lot of these guys, they're kind of yes men type people in the Republican Party, and they would back off if Donald Trump made it clear that he wanted the leadership again. I think even Nikki Haley would say, yes, sir. Okay, Donald Trump's going to be president again. I think he would win. So then, who would you want if it's not going to be Joe Biden? Who do you think has the best shot? Given all of this, who do you think has the best shot at the Rust Belt against Donald Trump if it's Donald Trump?
I mean, like, I would like to now personally in my dream scenario, I would be like pointing towards like a Sherrod Brown type candidate, right? Because I think those are the type candidates that are really good at winning these areas that we've lost over time. Why Tim Ryan, I don't think has a chance in hell. Tim Ryan's messaging on unions, I saw firsthand how that connected with some voters who were introduced to him for the first time and then gained very positive views of Tim Ryan, who's now running for Senate and most likely will one day probably try to run for president again. Of course, I should probably disclose that the political PAC I work for did endorse that candidate. I think most likely, though, it would end up being Kamala. Traditionally, it goes to the vice president. That's who everybody's eyes would turn to, and that seems to where the polling reflects as well. And as far as I know, Kamala Harris's polling, while not perfect, is still better than Hillary Clinton's. And she doesn't have a lot of the baggage that Hillary Clinton has. She has baggage, but a lot of that baggage is not going to connect the same way as Hillary Clinton's baggage.
Right. So I guess the thing is, so you brought up the mistakes that Hillary Clinton made by saying not campaigning in Wisconsin, all that kind of stuff. I would be genuinely shocked if she didn't learn from that and actually spend a decent amount of time campaigning there. I think the fact that she didn't spend any time campaigning there and still lost, I think she lost by like, what was it, 20 or 30,000 votes? Like it was 70,000 votes across the three key swing states, not including Ohio, but the three that really mattered in that election. I think that if she spent even a small amount of time there, I think that she could recover that. I think that Kamala Harris, yes, she's polling better right now. She might be able to do it.
By the way, to be clear, she's not even my like perfect choice for president. I think her against Trump is a huge risk. Her against DeSantis is a risk. Her against Pence is a risk. But I do think her chances are still better than Hillary Clinton's.
Yeah, I guess for me, I think that one of the big factors with Hillary Clinton is that she's got the vindication points now. A lot of people, kind of saw it that night that it was almost as if Donald Trump had stolen it from her. Not in the cringe Charlie Kirk sense of like, oh, they rigged the election, but that a lot of people looked at what happened and saw that as basically, oh, this is the chaos attempt to try to basically weaken democracy. And that culminated in January 6th, where Donald Trump did the insurrection. I mean, in a better scenario, I don't think that Donald Trump would have a chance at the office again after doing that. But unfortunately, he's the favorite right now in the Republican Party.
Yeah,
So
most certainly.
I think,
Yeah.
A curd is a curd.
yeah,
I
I don't know.
I mean, I just don't like. For me, it just feels like if I just don't understand why I would take like this much of a risk to put the buck on Hillary Clinton when she's already gone at this 2 times and had a real shot at it once and is the one person. I mean, why choose the one person who has lost to Donald Trump to run against him in 2024? That feels like a really like basic mistake, right? It would be like if the Republicans chose John McCain again in 2012. It would. I think most Republicans would be laughed out of the room if they proposed that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think the other thing that Hillary Clinton has going for her, and I mean, this is my bias here. Like, I agree with her the most, so there's that argument for me. It's that if she wins, you have the highest sort of payoff then, because at least from my view, she's somebody who has generally the best foreign policy. She has pretty good economics in my view, and of course, basically all the Democratic candidates are pretty good on social issues. So that's my bias, is that I like her. So, but yeah.
I'm. I mean, I understand that you like her. I guess like what is something that she has that gives her an edge that the other candidates that could be running don't have? Because the things you're talking about right now are talking points, right? But what is
Yeah.
something that she has? Because all the Democrats can make talking points. Most of them did complain about Russia. Most of them
Yeah.
have called Trump a liar or a coward and all these number of things. And I'm sure some of them could also said they would have managed Afghanistan differently. But what is something that she has that gives her an edge in comparison to other people?
Yeah, I think one of the things that she has going for her is, and of course everybody who's going to be in that position has this to some degree, but she has a lot of experience. She's got experience basically being, Secretary of State. She's got experience going back to, what, 40 years basically. And you can see that as kind of, well, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? People might look at her as, oh, she's an insider, this sort of thing. But I think after the last few years of the cavalcade of cringe that populism has posed for America, but the West at large, I think what she can run on is basically, stability, insider experience. She knows what she's doing in general. She's got a lot of, a long resume, impressive resume, and if she could sell that in a way to basically say, we're going to move forward, we're going in a prosperous direction, but we're not going to pretend that we're going to bring, the Rust Belt factory jobs back. We're going to get those people better jobs. I mean, you mentioned West Virginia, for example. I think one thing, if she was smart about this, one thing that she would go in with then, would be, we're going to get you better jobs, because those jobs are really tough and that industry is deleterious to the environment. I think nuclear is a really good alternative personally to coal-fired stations, that type of stuff. I don't think that coal is sustainable in the long run. I think for her, what she can do is she could say as well that, she won the popular vote in 2016. She almost won, and I think that, it might
Okay,
sound
wait,
like a
just
cope to people, but
one
it's also
second. We
kind of
got
true.
3 minutes. I just want to say
Yeah.
that experience argument could most certainly be made of Joe Biden. He has a ton of experience. That's one thing people can most certainly say about him. And as far as I know, even right now at his low point, as far as I know from the most up-to-date information I can find on Hillary, he's still polling higher than Hillary, and she's not even in office and in the public eye. Usually when people aren't in the public eye, their favorability increases. For Hillary, that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, I got you. I got you. And I'm just saying here, this scenario would only really, I think, seriously play out if Joe Biden decides not to run.
Okay.
And now, I still would prefer Hillary Clinton over Joe Biden, but if Joe Biden's going to run, then it would be kind of a disaster to split the ticket if Donald Trump's going to be the candidate, especially. So for me, this all kind of depends on if he decides to run or not. I think that Hillary Clinton has more and higher level, experience over say what 4 decades basically that Kamala Harris brings to the table. But it's not to say that Kamala Harris couldn't beat Donald Trump. She could. I just think that Hillary Clinton, if she learns from what happened in 2016 and she makes the case basically, that she was right about this the whole time, and that she's going to hold the enemies of freedom, the enemies of America to account, all that kind of stuff. I think she comes across as a stronger candidate. So
I'm just gonna end this with personal anecdote, and it's not really a point, but I just want to say, so I won't the people who raised me, my grandparents, they were lifelong Democrats. They basically voted for every Democrat who ever ran for office, every single one. And they don't live in like some coal manufacturing town. They live in the suburbs. And I remember being like, who'd you vote for in 2016? And they said, Donald J. Trump. I said, really? Why? You just don't like Hillary. There were a lot of people who, how a lot of people were motivated to vote for Joe Biden this time because they hated Trump. That was one of the main motivators. A lot of people in 2016, when they were facing Hillary, ended up voting for Trump, not even because they liked Trump, but just because they really, really hated Hillary. And so it was almost like the reverse of what we saw in 2020 for many people, where the Republicans had their own boogeyman. And so I just am terrified of handing it back to the person who we already gave a shot, Like she got her shot. She one shot, one chance. She got two of those. And I give it her a third one because I don't know, man. I feel like if we ended up losing after we gave Hillary Clinton the third shot, everybody would literally just be like, duh,
Yeah, no, I get that. If she lost, yeah, it would be a huge and bad moment. But I'm not as confident that she would lose. I think that she would beat Donald Trump. I think she would beat Donald Trump.
The one thing you're saying right now is she has experience, which she had in 2016, where she lost, and she was right about Trump on Russia, but then that talking point has been said by every other Democrat, and I don't understand why she would be the best one to make that argument. It just feels like everything you're saying that's a positive for her is held by other people, or they have those advantages, or she had those advantages when she lost. What has changed fundamentally besides that? What has changed, and why would she be the best person to deliver that message? I just don't see it, man. Sorry,
well, I also would say, I know you gotta get going, but I also say I'm the most confident that if she were to win the presidency, that she would actually hold Putin and Assad and all these other people to account. I'm not as confident about that with other candidates. Definitely not Joe Biden. And I'm, a bit more skeptical about Kamala Harris in general. I think that Hillary Clinton would actually deliver on that and make the world a safer place for democracy at large, and prevent, whether you're Rust Belt or anywhere else, from the U.S. basically becoming a fractured dystopia culture war, the world that Tim Pool dreams of, basically. So,
yeah, I mean, personally, Hillary Clinton's way too moderate for my taste. So is Joe Biden, but I just personally, she's just way too moderate for my taste. But we weren't really discussing generally which policy. If we were talking about who would we want to be in there based on policy, then I would be talking more about I would be favoring more like the Sherrod Browns, the Ro Khannas, maybe the Jamie Raskins of the world.
Right.
Right.
And then we'd have a disagreement over policy and stuff.
Yeah,
but anyway,
we just had
to talk with you. I know
it's okay.
I know you got hippy dippy. So have a good one, Dylan, and have a good one to everybody in the chat.
Okay, you have a good one. See you later.
Thanks.